today's news.
Hello, welcome to Old News, the programme and podcast which looks at news stories of the day through the papers of yesterday. The 20 miles per hour zones. Much in the news of late, with ideas of extending them round the Isle of Man, particularly in built-up areas. Not always happily accepted by all motorists, it has to be said, and somewhat controversial in places, but it's seen as being a safer way, safer for particularly pedestrians, safer for drivers through built-up areas and so on. Is it new? Well, of course it's not particularly. A quick rummage through the papers finds there's plenty of debate and not always acceptance over the years. I go back to the Examiner. Friday, February the 17th, 1939. A somewhat tongue-in-cheek advert, it seems. Wanted everywhere on our public highways, a 20 miles per hour speed limit for all wheeled vehicles, giving exception when required to vehicles used as ambulances or by doctors, nurses, firemen and police. Apply, mediation, Conscience Avenue, care of yourself and fellow people. It could have been done yesterday, couldn't it? 1939, that was. The Ramsey Courier, Friday, December the 30th, 10 years later, 1949, changed down 20 miles per hour speed limit for Ramsey. The Ramsey Town Commissioners give notice in this issue that on and after the 1st of January, a speed limit of 20 miles per hour will be enforced in respect of all vehicles using the streets of the town. At the last town board meeting, Mr E.C. Garside expressed the hope that adequate warning would be given to motorists and others of the decision to impose a speed limit, and it was stated that notices would be posted at the entrances to the town. 1952. 3 years later, in the Examiner of Friday, March the 21st, we read that Tynwald puts 20 miles per hour limit on Head Road. That's the road coming up to Manx Radio, of course. Condition on borrowing by Douglas. Douglas Corporation are to be allowed to borrow £10,760 to pay for the widening of the Head Road. The work has already been started, but only on condition they impose a 20 miles per hour speed limit on the widened road. Doesn't seem particularly wide these days. Tynwald made this condition on Tuesday at the suggestion of Deemster Cowley, who said Hackney drivers frequently went down the Head Road at breakneck speed, paying no attention to the 30 miles per hour limit, never mind a 20 miles per hour limit. A 20 miles per hour limit was recommended by the local government board in their report. When Mr E.W. Farger for the corporation protested that neither he nor the corporation had received a copy of the report and not been able to consider the recommended speed limit, Mr J.F. Crellin, chairman of the local government board, asked if Douglas town clerk had not received a copy of the report. A messenger returned to say that the town clerk had not, but meanwhile the petition had been passed with the condition of the 20 miles per hour limit. The Lieutenant Governor said that though the corporation had not read the recommendations, he did not think that was any reason to hold up the petition. Deemster Cowley suggested that the corporation could apply for the conditions to be altered if they objected strongly. 1952. In the same year, in the Examiner, Friday, June the 6th, 20 miles per hour speed limit in Onken, we read. A speed limit of 20 miles an hour is to be imposed in Onken Main Road and built-up area. This was announced on Tuesday night by the chairman, Mr J.C. Niverson, MHK, in answer to a question at the Commissioners' meeting. Mr Niverson said the Highway Board had made the decision recently and had also decided to erect 2 pedestrian crossings at the top of Royal Avenue and the bottom of School Road for the school children to cross on their way from school, and another at the top of Summerhill Road. The Commissioners have been seeking a speed limit in the village for some time, and Mr J.S. Doherty asked what progress had been made about the no parking regulations which the board passed some months ago. Mr Niverson said the no parking was difficult to enforce until the notices were up. These had been ordered. In 1953, in the Examiner, Friday, July the 24th, we read of a speed trap in Castletown. It is surprising, the article starts, how many motorists conform to the 20 miles per hour speed limit. 60 motorists passed through this trap, and this is the result, said Inspector R.D. Quine at Castletown Police Court on Wednesday, when 7 car drivers were charged with exceeding the 20 mph speed limit. The inspector was replying to the High Bailiff, who suggested that 20 miles per hour was very slow. 4 of the drivers were dismissed under the First Offenders Act on payment of costs, and 2 with previous convictions were fined 10 shillings each. James Edward Cowell, 54, of School Road, Onken, who admitted a speed of 28.33 miles per hour, very important that .33, was stated by Mr R.K. Easton, advocate, to have a completely clear record. Mr Easton asked the matter be dealt with in such a way as to keep his licence clear. In most other districts, the speed limit was 30 miles per hour. High Bailiff Lay, I think in this case he was really going at quite a low speed. He dismissed the case on payment of costs. Also dismissed was Ralph Kenneth Martz, Bergen, Belmont Hill, Douglas, who was stated to have travelled from Loo Court to Janet's Corner at a speed of 29.4 miles per hour. Inspector Quine stated the defendant did not visit Castletown very often and said he had not seen the sign. Gwendolyn M. Wilson, Edgermony, Bayview Road, Port Erin, William Gill, Spowett, care of the Hydro Hotel, Port Erin, and Robert W. Corlett, Belvedere, Loch Promenade, Douglas, were also dismissed on payment of the costs. Fined 10 shillings for similar speeding offences were Kenneth Frank Brown, Highcroft Avenue, Douglas, and George P. Bridge, the Winnets, Duke Road in Douglas. The High Bailiff warned in future he would impose fines even on first offenders. You have been warned. Speaking of which, 3 years later in the Isle of Man Times, Friday, August the 24th, 1956, first fine for exceeding 20 miles per hour, speeding in Peel. The first case of speeding in Peel since the introduction of the bylaw imposing a 20 miles per hour speed limit was dealt with in the Peel Magistrates Court on Saturday when Thomas David Quayle, 36 of Victoria Avenue, Douglas, was the defendant. Police Inspector Lowy said over a measured quarter mile in Peel, the defendant travelled at 31.03 miles per hour. Oh, it was that 03 which did the damage, and he was fined 20 shillings and 4 shillings costs. 6 commercial vehicle drivers were fined 20 shillings and 4 shillings costs for exceeding the speed limit of 30 miles per hour on the main Peel-Douglas Road. It's been that for a long time, hasn't it? They were Kenneth Conabear of Westminster Drive in Douglas, who drove a van at 45, Charles Kitchener-Clark, 16, Oak Avenue, Pulrose, travelling at 38.3, Frank John Highfield, 66, Circular Road, Douglas, 42, Adelaine Jean Corrin, Ballaspet Farm Patrick, 35.03. It's these decimals that get you. Speed limit is a farce, is the headline in the Times of Friday, May the 3rd, 1957. The Commissioner urges 30 miles per hour. Will a set of 4 new 20 miles per hour speed limit signs make motorists in Castletown keep their speeds below 20 miles an hour? At the Commissioner's meeting on Wednesday, board member Mr J.F. Corlett said he didn't think they would. I think the 20 miles per hour limit is a farce, stated Mr Corlett, and people treat it as a farce. He was in favour of a 30 miles per hour limit, which, in his opinion, would be controllable. The Commissioners agreed to provide the new signs, metal ones, which will replace existing wooden signs. Been a fair time since we've had wooden road signs, isn't it? The town may have a 30 miles per hour limit is the headline in the Times of Friday, February the 5th, 1960. The present 20 miles per hour speed limit in certain parts of Castletown may soon be raised to 30 miles per hour. This is a mere 3 years later. Things were rocketing along, it has to be said, at their usual speed of probably about 20 miles an hour. Last year, both Port Erin and Port St Mary raised their limits to the 30 mark, and Castletown is the only place in the south with other than a 30 miles per hour limit. The Finance and General Purposes Committee in the Commissioners has instructed the Town Clerk to make provision for the purchase and erection of 2 30 miles per hour and de-restriction assemblies and 4 30 miles per hour signs, along with 4 de-restriction signs. It is thought that the raised speed limit will affect Alexander Road after the proposed modernisation scheme has been carried out there. And finally, in the holiday news, Saturday, June the 11th, 1960, we read how a 20 miles per hour limit stopped the TT. Now they lap at 100 plus and more. It is a fantastic thought, the article starts, in these days of high-speed racing in which the TT course is lapped at an average of over 100 miles an hour, that a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on all motor vehicles was an obstacle to the staging of races in the first place. That speed limit applied all over Britain, and it was coupled with the fact that it was not possible to close the roads for racing that brought the TT races to the Isle of Man. Being a self-governing country, the island could make its own laws on the subject, and did so. And from the very early races started by the Autocycle Club, the TT course emerged and became in time the criterion of road racing circuits unique throughout the world. The 1960 TT races on June the 15th, 16th, on June the 13th, 15th and 17th will be the 53rd And the TT course will again have thousands of motorcycle racing enthusiasts on it to see the greatest riders in action, as is much the case today. And it is not only a motorcycle racing course now. In the 1960 season, it will be lapped by bicycles, scooters and runners, as well in events of international standing. I think we see the cycles. Scooters have been some time absent, haven't they? I do remember the scooter rallies back in the day, though, or certainly people talking about them. Do you remember them? Any thoughts on it? Let me know. Howard Kane with an E at manxradio.com. If you can hark back to the days of 20-mile-an-hour limits coming in, as you might gather, like so many things, 20 miles an hour limits are old news. Until next week, cheerio.
You're gonna be yesterday's news.